23 years. That's how long I gave that marriage. 23 years of early mornings, late nights, missed vacations, skipped lunches. Also, my wife and I could build something real together. Something that was supposed to last. My name is Daniel. I'm 47 years old. I'm a civil engineer. I design bridges for a living. Structures built to hold weight, built to endure. The irony of that isn't lost on me now. My wife's name is Sandra. We met at a mutual friend's cookout back in 2001. She was wearing a yellow sundress and laughing at something that wasn't even that funny, and I thought that's the kind of laugh I want to hear every day for the rest of my life. We dated for 2 years, got married in the fall of 2003, bought our house in Raleigh a year later. We had 2 kids, our son Marcus, who's now 20, and our daughter Lily, who just turned 17. From the outside, we were the couple other people pointed to, the ones who seemed to have it figured out. Our neighbors would joke that we were the boring ones, and we took that as a compliment. No drama. No screaming matches in the driveway. Just 2 people who built a life brick by brick. That's what I believed anyway. But perfection is always a construction, isn't it? And every construction has a flaw you don't see until the whole thing starts to crack. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in March. I came home from work around 6:30. Normal evening. Traffic on I-40. Stopped at the grocery store to pick up milk and bread. I walked in through the garage, set my keys on the counter, and noticed Sandra was dressed up, not just casually put together. Dressed up, hair done, perfume, the dark green blouse she usually saved for date nights. I said, "You look nice. Did I forget something?" She looked up from her phone and said, completely calm, "Oh, I'm going out tonight. There's leftovers in the fridge." I stood there for a second, processing. Going out where? Just dinner. A friend. Which friend? She paused, just a half second too long. You don't know her. Someone from my yoga class. I let it go. Sandra had her circle of friends, I had mine. We trusted each other. Or I trusted her. That distinction matters now. She came home around 11. I was already in bed reading. She was in a good mood, loose, relaxed, smiling at her phone before she put it face down on the nightstand. I noticed that. The face down part. I didn't say anything. I told myself I was being paranoid. The second crack appeared 3 weeks later. Same thing. Tuesday evening, dressed up. Out by 7, home before midnight. This time when I asked, she said it was a work happy hour. But Sandra works in pharmaceutical sales. I know her colleagues. I know the one she actually likes and the one she tolerates. None of them do Tuesday night happy hours. I said, "Which people from work?" She said, "Just a few from the regional team." "You don't know them?" I nodded. Said okay. But I didn't sleep that night. That Friday, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through her phone while she was in the shower. I want to be honest about that. It felt wrong. It felt like a violation. And I almost put it down twice. But I picked it up. And I looked. There were text messages from a contact saved as Kelsey Y. Every Tuesday. Consistent. But the messages weren't what women text each other. There was no talk about yoga or dinner plans or anything normal. Most of the messages had been deleted. What was left were fragments. A restaurant name I didn't recognize in Durham. A time. A single message that said, "Can't wait to see you." And Sandra's reply, "Me too." I put the phone down. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor for a long time. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I knew myself well enough to know that if I opened my mouth right then, I would say things I couldn't take back, and I would lose the only thing that mattered more than my anger, my leverage. I called my brother Kevin the next morning. Kevin's a family law attorney in Charlotte. He didn't ask me a lot of questions. He just said, "Don't move money, don't change behavior, and get documentation before you do anything." He gave me the name of a private investigator, a guy named Ray Stanton, former sheriff's deputy, operates out of Cary. "He's thorough," Kevin said, "and he's discreet." I met Ray the following Monday at a coffee shop near my office. I told him what I knew. He didn't flinch. He'd heard worse. He told me what he'd need. A general schedule, her vehicle information, her usual routes. He said he'd have something for me within 2 to 3 weeks. I went home that evening and watched my wife make dinner. Watched her hum to herself. Watched her pour 2 glasses of wine. Watched her ask me about a project at work like everything was fine. I answered her questions. I ate the food she made. I thought about 23 years. I thought about Marcus being born. Sandra crying in the delivery room, me holding her hand so hard she told me I was going to break her fingers. I thought about the night Lily had a febrile seizure at 18 months. And we drove 90 miles an hour to the ER. And Sandra didn't let go of Lily's hand the whole time. I thought about the house we bought, the vacations we took, the Sunday mornings drinking coffee on the back porch while the kids slept in. I thought about all of it, and I still didn't say a word. The Tuesdays kept happening. I tracked them, didn't follow her, didn't make calls, didn't do anything except keep my routine exactly the same. Every Tuesday she left, and every Tuesday I sat in that house and waited. 3 weeks after I hired Ray, he called me at work. "I have what you need," he said. "When can you meet?" We met at the same coffee shop. He slid a folder across the table. I opened it. There were photographs. Clear, time-stamped, professional. Sandra at a restaurant in Durham, the one I'd seen in the texts. Across from her, a man, mid to late 40s, well-dressed, dark hair going gray at the temples. Ray had already done a background search. His name was Connor Walsh, corporate account manager for a software company based in Research Triangle Park. Divorced 2 years ago. There were photographs from a second Tuesday, and a third. Each one the same restaurant, same corner table, same 2 people. In the last set of photos, they were walking to his car in the parking garage. She got in. They drove away. Ray said there was also footage from a hotel in Chapel Hill. Twice. I closed the folder from a hotel in Chapel Hill. Twice. I closed the folder. I thanked Ray. I paid him in cash. I drove to a park near my office and sat in my car for 45 minutes watching a group of kids play soccer on the field. I was not going to fall apart. I made that decision sitting in that car. Whatever I felt, the nausea, the disbelief, the low animal grief that was already spreading through my chest, none of it was going to make my decisions for me. I called Kevin. "I have documentation," I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Okay. Come to Charlotte this weekend. We're going to talk about everything." That Saturday, I told Sandra I was visiting a college friend. She didn't ask follow-up questions. That alone said something. I spent 4 hours at Kevin's dining room table going over everything. What North Carolina law says about marital misconduct, what her assets looked like, what the house was worth, what the retirement accounts held, what Sandra's income had been over the last 3 years. Kevin walked me through every scenario with the patience of someone who has helped people through the worst moments of their lives. "You have a strong position," he said, "but the moment you confront her, the clock starts, so make sure you're ready before you pull that trigger." I spent the next week getting ready. I opened a personal checking account at a bank across town, separate from our joint accounts. I made digital copies of every financial document I could access. Tax returns, investment statements, the mortgage, the car titles. I saved them to a USB drive that I kept on my desk at work. I contacted my HR department and quietly updated my emergency contact and direct deposit information. I did all of this calmly, methodically, like an engineer documenting a structural failure. On a Wednesday evening, I chose Wednesday deliberately, not Tuesday. I came home, set my bag down, and sat across from Sandra at the kitchen table. She looked up from her laptop. "Hey, how was your day?" I said. "I need to talk to you about Connor Walsh." The color drained from her face so fast it looked like something physical happening to her. She didn't speak. She just stared at me. I slid the folder across the table. She didn't open it. She already knew what was in it, or she knew enough. For a long moment, there was no sound in that kitchen except the refrigerator running and the neighbor's dog barking somewhere outside. Then she said, "How long have you known?" I said, "Long enough." What followed was a conversation I won't reconstruct in full because some parts of it are still too raw. She cried. She apologized. She said it had been going on for 4 months. She said it wasn't what she planned. She said she loved me. She said she didn't know what she wanted. She said a lot of things that people say when they're caught and scared and desperate to contain the damage. I listened to all of it. I didn't raise my voice once. And when she was finished, I said, "I've already spoken to a lawyer. I want you to find your own." The look on her face when I said that, I don't think I'll ever forget it. Not the crying, not the apology, but that moment. The moment she realized that I hadn't come to that table to fight. I'd come to close a door. The next morning, I sat down with Marcus and Lily. One of the hardest things I've ever done. Marcus is 20. He handled it the way young men try to handle things, with a jaw set tight and eyes that said more than his words. Lily cried and asked if it was her fault, and I held her and told her no. Absolutely not, not even close, not in any universe that has ever existed. I told them both the truth in plain language, not every detail, but the truth. I believe that was the right thing to do, even though it cost me something to say it. Children deserve honesty from the parent who is trying to protect them. They can tell the difference between being shielded and being lied to. Sandra moved into the guest room. 2 weeks later, she moved to an apartment closer to downtown. We never screamed at each other. We never threw things. We communicated through Kevin and through the attorney she eventually hired. A woman named Patricia who was professional and fair. The divorce took 11 months. North Carolina has a mandatory 1-year separation period. During that year, I kept going to work. I kept picking Lily up from school on Thursdays. I kept calling Marcus every Sunday. I ran 3 mornings a week. I started cooking actual meals instead of eating cereal over the sink. Small things, but small things add up. I found out from a mutual friend around month 7 that Sandra and Connor Walsh had stopped seeing each other. I don't know the details. I didn't ask. What I felt when I heard that, and I want to be honest about this, wasn't satisfaction. It was something quieter, a kind of stillness. The confirmation that what I had already suspected was true, that what she blew up our family for wasn't even something built to last. The divorce was finalized on a gray November morning. I signed the papers in Kevin's office. There was no dramatic moment, just ink on paper and the sound of the stapler. I drove home. My home, the house we'd bought together, which I was keeping in the settlement. I walked through every room, the kids' old bedrooms, the kitchen where we'd had 1,000 dinners, the back porch where we drunk coffee on Sunday mornings while the kids slept in. I sat down on the back steps and I let myself feel all of it. The grief, the loss, the strange, terrible freedom of being a person whose future was suddenly unwritten. And then I got up, because that's what you do. Not because it's easy, not because the hurt is gone, but because staying on those steps forever isn't living. It's just waiting to die in slow motion. I'm not going to tell you I'm completely healed. I don't think that's how it works. There are still Tuesday nights when something tightens in my chest for no reason I can name. There are still moments when I see a photo of us from 10 years ago and feel something I don't have a word for. But here's what I know now that I didn't know before. I know who I am when everything falls apart. I know I can be the parent my kids needed me to be when it would have been very easy to fall apart. I know that grief doesn't kill you, even when it feels like it might. And I know that 23 years of real love, the kind that shows up, the kind that carries groceries and sits in hospital waiting rooms and coaches Little League and pays for braces, that doesn't become worthless because of how the story ended. It happened. It was real. And it made me into a person who knows exactly what he has to offer. If you're sitting somewhere right now reading this or listening, and you recognize this story because you're living some version of it, I want you to hear this. You are not naive for having trusted someone. You are not weak for having loved someone completely. The person who broke your trust made a choice that belongs to them. It says everything about who they are and nothing about your worth. Document what needs to be documented. Call the lawyer before you have the confrontation. Take care of your finances. Protect your kids. Keep your voice steady. Move like someone who has already decided to survive this. Because you have. The life on the other side of this is yours to build. And unlike the one that just cracked, this one, you get to design from the ground up. I'm Daniel. I'm a civil engineer. I build structures meant to last. I'm still doing exactly that. When I look back at everything that happened, the hardest part isn't the betrayal itself. The hardest part is the quiet. The ordinary Tuesday evenings. The refrigerator running in the background. The way life kept moving at a completely normal pace while something underneath it was already broken beyond repair. I think about the choices Sandra made, not in a single dramatic moment, but in dozens of small ones. Every time she picked up her phone and deleted a message. Every time she looked me in the eye over dinner and said nothing. Every deception built on top of the last one, until the whole thing became a structure that couldn't hold its own weight. That's the thing about dishonesty. It doesn't stay small. It compounds. And eventually, the person living inside that web of half-truths can't find their way back to who they actually were. I don't say that to condemn her. I say it because it's true. And because understanding it helped me stop asking the question that will destroy you if you let it. Why wasn't I enough? That question has the wrong architecture. The answer was never about me. The answer lived in the choices she made before I ever walked through the door that Tuesday evening. What I've come to believe, and Daniel's story confirmed this for me, is that integrity is not a single decision. It's a daily practice. It's a choice you make when no one is watching, when the easier path is right there and the harder one asks something of you. The people who live with real integrity don't do it because they fear getting caught. They do it because they understand that every compromise of character is a debt you eventually pay back with interest. Sandra paid that debt. The relationship she walked away from, the family she fractured, the trust she spent 2 decades earning and 4 months destroying. That is the natural consequence of 100 quiet decisions made in the wrong direction. And Daniel, the man in his story, he showed something I think is worth naming. He showed that intelligence without arrogance is one of the most powerful things a person can possess. He didn't explode. He didn't beg. He didn't make the confrontation about his pain. He made it about the facts. He documented, he protected himself, he consulted people who knew more than he did, and he walked into that conversation with the folder already closed. That is not coldness. That is the discipline of someone who refuses to let grief make his decisions. Resilience, I've learned, doesn't look like not breaking. It looks like what Daniel did on those mornings after. Getting Lily from school, calling Marcus on Sundays, running 3 times a week even when he didn't feel like it. It looks like choosing to keep building when everything you built just fell. That's not a small thing. That is, in fact, everything. If you take anything from this story, take this. The life that comes after the hardest chapter is not a consolation prize. It is the version of your life that you finally get to construct with full clarity. No illusions, no performance, no slow erosion of who you are. Daniel signed those papers on a gray November morning and walked back into a house that was entirely his. And he started again. That is what courage actually looks like.